So the topic is Divine Mother, Mother of the Universe. I would say a few things about the idea of the absolute divine reality as the feminine archetype, which is a very special feature of Hindu tradition, Vedic tradition to be more precise. So you find in the Vedic literature a number of suktas. Each sukta contains many verses. Some of them are very, very famous, Devi Sukta, Durga Sukta. Some of them are very famous. If you analyze the evolution of the concept of the absolute reality, the evolution of the concept of God in the Vedic literature, which is the oldest human testament, the oldest document that explains the quest for, the human quest for the higher truth, higher reality. You find there are 5 stages in evolution. In fact, one of the great contributions of European Indologists, mostly German Indologists, to Vedic studies was this analysis of the evolution of the absolute reality in the Vedic literature. Because they compared the concept of the absolute reality in the Abrahamic traditions, in Greek mystery religions, in contrast to the Vedic concepts. So there are 5 stages. So the pantheism, panitism, polytheism, henotheism, monotheism and monism. There are 6 stages to be more precise. So the first concept, human concept of God, was equating nature, the external phenomena, with God. I mean, the grandeur, the beauty, the greatness, the glory of mountains, lakes, rivers and oceans, the sunrise, sunset, all these were looked upon as the testimony of the grandeur of the absolute reality. So external nature was equated with God. So you find, for those of you who may not have access to Sanskrit language, can find traces of these ideas in Emerson's books, the journals, and also in the works of William Wordsworth, the British poet, English poet. Those of you who have read Emerson's Brahma, for example, it is nothing but an English translation of some of the verses of the Gita. So the 2nd chapter you find many verses. And also you find the traces of this idea of equating external nature with God. It's called pantheism. And those of you who are familiar with Bengali, this Gitanjali is considered to be an attempt to understand God in terms of natural beauty. It's also pantheistic nature. Because Tagore had no idea of Advaita Vedanta. He didn't go that much. And he didn't have any metaphysical background. So what he did was, he tried to analyze the beauty of external nature. Some Kumari, Uttava Kumar, you find the same sort of bird, oh God, you are appearing as the young child, the little girl, the old man, you can find all this. So that's the first stage in the evolution, the human evolution of the idea of Godhead. The second stage is pantheism, where they conceive that there is an invisible divine spirit immanent in external nature. So the first stage, beauty, the grandeur of nature. Ivam me gange yamane saraswate purushne. You find all these verses in the 10th mandala. So Ganga, Yamuna, Saraswati. 10 rivers are mentioned. of his 7 major rivers. So, Saptanadhya Mukhya, so Tisra, Sayana speaks of 3 auxiliary rivers and 7 major rivers. Ganga, Yamuna, Saraswati, Purishne, Ajikhiya. So more or less the 5 rivers flowing through the Punjab region. This Jhelum, Jhinab, Satluj and so on, and Ganga, Yamuna, etc. And the second stage called the pantheism, where they evolved that within nature there is an immanent divine reality. So within the glory of a river or the mountain, there is a spirit. So you can find in the Native American idea of there is a mother spirit, nature, the spirit within it. So you find the Shinto tradition in Japan. Right? So that's why they had these parks, rocks, rivers, streams and all, because all these natural phenomena contain an immanent divine reality. The third stage is polytheism, where they conceived a divine reality, regulating divine reality behind all these natural phenomena. And mostly they conceived feminine archetypes, in fact. So all the rivers were feminine nature. Mother Earth was feminine nature. Prithvi, Bhumi, Dharitri, all these Sanskrit synonyms of earth is feminine, so mostly. And then the fourth stage, they conceived of monotheism and henotheism. These are interlinked. Monotheism means concept of one supreme monotheistic Godhead. Behind all this plurality of diversity of gods and goddesses. Henotheism is somewhat linked. In certain Vedic suttas, Indra Sutta, for example, Varuna Sutta, they will conceive of Varuna or Indra as a supreme reality. In the Rigveda Devi Sutta, you find Aham Rudre Virvasi Vishcharami Aham Indra, like it begins, So, there, the Divine Mother is conceived to be the absolute divine reality, the feminine archetype. And monism thinks of the absolute reality as neither feminine nor masculine, but going beyond both, transcending the limitations of attributes, either feminine or masculine or any of these, conceivable human attributes. Now, when you think of God as a divine mother, there is one special aspect about it. If you utter the mantras, some of you may be familiar with puja mantras. So what is puja mantra? In fact, the energy is omnipresent. So you are pleading to this energy to manifest in the image or a photo or whatever it is. So many people who don't understand idolatry, who don't understand the worship of God in a photo or image or anything, they consider it is a kind of crude idolatry, which is really a very wrong interpretation. We are not worshipping the image or the photo. We are worshipping the omnipresent, transcendental, immanent spiritual energy, and we are pleading that energy to manifest in that image or the photo for our concentration. Finally, our purpose is to manifest this reality within our hearts, because the permanent residential address of God is our own heart. That's the permanent residential address of God. So, but we cannot begin at that stage. If you sit somewhere and think God is sitting in my heart, you may think I'm only 6 feet tall, 160 pounds, So God is living within me, so God should be smaller than 6 feet and 100, maybe weigh less than 160 pounds. So this omnipresent, immanent reality manifesting within me should be brought out. For that, we have to turn the search for God inward. Looking everywhere and finding a place, a focus to concentrate, to meditate upon, to contemplate upon. Finally, to feel the presence, experience, not believe in, but experience the presence of this divine spark within us, the immanence, and then to experience this divine reality everywhere. So first we must experience within our hearts, and then we must experience it everywhere. For that we need an instrument to begin with. Just as a child going to kindergarten needs a very big slate where he or she should practice alphabet. If you give a small book and modern ball pen, the child will not be able to understand. So he needs all these multicolors, pencils, all this. Similarly, we need a visible external object on which we must be able to meditate upon. So this divine energy is invited to manifest in the image or the icon, and then we focus. Finally, that reality manifesting within our heart should be experienced, and then it should be experienced everywhere. So this is the journey of the human mind to identify the soul within it. So in this evolution you find 5 stages. Now coming to Divine Mother as God, we have to keep in mind, we always relate God in terms of human relationships. So when we invite God to be present in the photo, we are trying to look upon God as the divine energy, as a guest, and then be present there. So that's why if you read the English translation of the puja mantras, the whole thing is, here somebody is walking the street, you humbly request him to come to your home, give him a very good place to sit, good, neat place, honorable place to sit, and then you give him water to wash his hands, to wash his feet. So all these ideas evolved in the tropical climate of India, in this subcontinent. So when they will go, a guest won't be wearing socks, so he needs water to wash his feet. So he will need water to wash his hands. You have to give him water to take bath. So you find all this puja mantra. You give water to take bath, wash his hands, then saddle paste, all this. Maybe in different cultures there are different ways of honoring a guest. It could differ from culture to culture. These are secondary details. The point is, with great honor and respect and a sense of reverence and sacredness, we invite God to our place, to the image or photo, and finally we invite him or her into our heart. And through this process we are awakening the presence of the divine within us. And when we realize the presence of the divine within our hearts, we also realize the presence of this divine everywhere. So through immanence towards omnipresence. First we experience, remember, not believe in. That's a very important point. In Hindu tradition, Vedantic tradition, Srutya, Yuktya, Swanubhutya. So first you listen to scriptures, listen to lectures, and you chant and so on. Finally you use your reason, you do practice, and then finally you experience, not believe in. That's an important line of demarcation between Hindu Vedantic tradition and other traditions. Belief is only skin deep. Experience or anubhuti, swanubhuti, one's own inner experience of the presence of the divine within and the presence of the divine outside, everywhere. It is a scheme of spiritual life. In this scheme, the concept of God as a divine mother has a special place. As I mentioned earlier, our first stage is to establish a relationship with God. Now, what is the most natural, intimate, as far as possible, unselfish relationship that we can conceive of? Not our relationship with brothers, sisters, or father, but the relationship with the mother is the most undeniable and the most natural and most and the purest relationship that we can ever think of. So there is a convocation address in Yajurveda, which comes in the Krishna Yajurveda of the true tradition, Shukla Yajurveda and Krishna Yajurveda. So it comes in the Taittiriya Upanishad. So in a convocation address, in which the teacher addresses the students who have completed 12 years of Vedic studies and who are about to return to their home to start their life as sons or daughters, brothers, husbands or wives, depending upon the social context, family context, there is a convocation address. Now the first instruction that a teacher gives to the student who is about to start his or her life as a family member, as a member of society, or citizen of the country is Matra Devo Bhava. Later Pitra Devo Bhava, Acharya Devo Bhava, Aditi Devo Bhava, etc. The meaning is, let your mother be like God to you. So it means you must honor your mother as much as you honor God Himself. This is the literal translation. Then Pitradevo Bhava, your father should be as respectable to you as God Himself. So also your teacher and also the guest. Guest is not a person whom you invite formally and give business class tickets and give an elaborate reception. No. Guest is Aditi, means Anamantritaha, Agataha, Adithega. This is Shankaracharya's definition. A guest who comes to visit your home uninvited. So one should be able to respect a person who visits home with great sense of honor and respect. These are the instructions given to students who have completed their education and who are able to go back to their homes to start their life, to marry, then part of social family obligation. So, now why this is this convocation address begins with this instruction, Matra Devo Bhava. Now, there is a statement in one of our Smriti literature, Manu's literature. Upadhyaya Dashacharya Acharya tu Shatam Pita Sagasrenadhigam Pidhu Gauravena Atirichyate. Sagasrenadhigam Matuhu Gauravena Atirichyate. This is a statement. It means this. Upadhyaya means those who go to university, goes guest lecturer. It is not the dean or head of the department, not a professor, but who gives classes from time to time. So Upadhyaya, you respect your teacher, and Acharya in an academic sense, in ancient Vedic terminology, meant a person who teaches one full branch of the Vedic Vedas. That's Upadhyaya Deshacharya. So you should respect your senior teacher, so to speak, the one who teaches you Vedas, 10 times as much as you respect and honor this lecture. Then Acharya to Shadam Pita, Shadam means 100. So You should respect your father as much as, 100 times as much as you respect your professor. And Sahasrena Adhigam Matuhu. So what about mother? You should honor your mother 1000 times as much as you honor father himself. So in ascending order of honor, respect and respectability. This is Manu's statement in Manusmriti. So the whole point is this: in a family life, the most respectable, the most honorable, and the most natural and I would say inseparable human relationship is the relationship between mother and her children. So in Vedantic tradition, Hindu tradition, conceiving God as the Divine Mother is in a way superior to all other concepts. Pantheistic, pantheistic, monotheistic, henotheistic or monistic ideas. Because it is the most natural, most sacred and most intimate human relationship that we can ever conceive of. That's the uniqueness of looking upon God as the Divine Mother of the universe. Because a mother can be can have equanimity. It should be an ideal. In modern family circles, I don't want to say much about what it has become, the Protestant or at least non-Catholic family tradition. So the less said about it, the better. So better don't say anything about it. So let us focus on the ideal. So the ideal is that the most sacred, the most inseparable and most intimate natural relationship that we can ever think of is the relationship between mother and her children. So that's the uniqueness of it. Now if you go to Holy Mother, you find you can find in real practice, it's natural that Holy Mother could look upon Sharadanandaji or even Amjad, who is a very unlikely person, and many great spiritual seekers who went to her, whose language she could speak, she could understand, and her language they could understand, and she could instruct and teach and inspire them into spiritual life. But you find a person like Sister Nivedita, who was a firebrand Irish lady, full of idealism, sincerity, great, a very intellectual person, a very great sense of inquisitiveness, who could argue with Swami Vivekananda, the great spiritual, intellectual giant, did not need anything when she went to Holy Mother's presence. She had many doubts, but she didn't feel the need to ask them. And so what Mother spoke through the language of silence, she could understand, of course, through the medium of silence. And remember, coming to silence, there is again a statement in the Rigveda Samhita, Antaya Bhuvardinam Anantaya Mukha. This is a part of the Rig. Rig means the unit of Rigveda. It is called Rig. Rig Richa. So Antaya Bhuvardinam. The language of the finite, the limited, is verbosity. The language of the infinite is silence. That is Anantaya Mukha. So Ananta means the infinite, the transcendental. The transcendental can only be expressed through the language of experience. And what's the language of experience? Silence. That's what Sri Ramakrishna says. When he was in a state of samadhi, he could not give a long lecture. It's all silence. So you have to come down many steps below even to reach the level of Om. Om, according to Mandukya Upanishad, it is symbolic of the empirical, the phenomenal, and also the transcendental existence. Abhara Brahman and Parabrahman. That's what Omkara stands for. So, even to come down to the level of Omkara, from the level of Samadhi or silence. So it's a long distance you have to travel backward, several steps below, from experience to Om. And from Om you have to travel a very long distance to reach the level of Gayatri. And Gayatri is the totality, the sum total of the entire Vedas. The Gayatri is the name of a meter, and also it is the essence of the entire Vedas. And now, from Gayatri you have to travel a very long distance to reach the Upanishads, the Vedas. In other words, the highest and the subtlest and the purest and the infinite can only be experienced through the language of silence. That's why silence is sometimes more eloquent than words sometimes. So, when Sister Nivedita reached Holy Mother's presence, she didn't have to ask any question. Mother answered her questions, and Sister Nivedita got the answer, and the language both used was the language of silence. Now, coming to one very important subject in Holy Mother's method of teaching, that's what I'm going to focus on today, right now. That's something very interesting. Now, if you read the lives of the reminiscences of the Gospel of Holy Mother, you find many striking events which are difficult for us to understand. To give an example, before entering the topic, I should tell you. One day, Mother was visiting Benares, Saranath, with some disciples, Indian disciples. And then they found the disciples, those who had traveled Holy Mother, found a large number of Europeans were staring at the dilapidated relics of the ancient Buddhist stupas, Buddhist monasteries. Now to remember, Buddha was born in Kapilavastu, Nepal, walked all the way to Bodh Gaya and meditated and became the real Buddha, as I mentioned, in the classical work of Ashughosha. He says, Ihansane sushyudu me shariram tugastimam samcha vilayam chayatuhu aprapya siddhim bahu janma durlabha naivasana kaya mataschalishyate. So he took a vow, I'm going to sit under this tree and meditate, and until I reach the highest illumination, spiritual illumination, which could be achieved only by practicing meditation for several lives, I will not get up from this seat. And he became the great Buddha. And then he walked straight to Benares, Saranath, Sanchi, those places. So that is the place where he started his evangelical work. His preaching of the Buddha Dharma, Bauddha Dharma. So it's a very special, very important and very sacred place, because that was the place where Buddha started his career as a world teacher. So there are temples built by Buddhists from different countries, Japan, Cambodia, China, Burma, all the countries. So at that time, of course, these temples had not come into existence, but there were ancient Buddhist temples, pagodas, which were being destroyed by succeeding waves of Muslim invaders from time to time. So these people were Europeans mostly, because in those days French, British and German Indologists had started extensive study of ancient Hindu Buddhist traditions in India. So they were staring at these old relics of temples. So the mother's Indian disciples and companions asked her, Mother, why are they looking at these things with such curiosity? Then mother says, they were the people who built all this in the previous life. Now they have come back and staring at their own work. This is roughly the statement that mother made. Now, one may not fully understand this if you look at life as just one journey that begins with the birth and ends the moment your body is pushed through that tube in the crematorium, and finally ending the journey with a piece of stone where you go every year to put some flowers. That's not the story of human life. Death is only a comma. It's not a full stop of a spiritual journey. So mother could see past, present and future in a single dimension. So they were the people who built all this. Now when they see these things naturally, they've forgotten all that, but they feel a natural attraction towards this. This is just to give a glimpse of mother's transcendental spiritual insight, where mother could see the past, present and future as a single dimension. Now coming to the subject, one interesting aspect of mother's teaching was that it was very, very harmonious, very realistic and very practical. If you read the reminiscences of the teachings of mother, you find many instructions which may appear to be somewhat unintelligible, even contradictory if we don't read them with proper understanding. To give an example, to some disciples mother says, you should work hard. Look at me. Even with all these domestic obligations, and if you read Holy Mother's life, you feel you're all very lucky compared to mother. She had many more problems than any housewife, any ordinary woman can ever think of. Her relatives and her brothers. You can read it, like many of you may have read it, but I want to focus on one important aspect which is common and relevant for all spiritual seekers, so that you read mother's life and teachings with this in mind. So mother says you should practice meditation, japa, and then she gives her own example. She used to practice for long hours. So one must have steadiness, steady practice, strong determination. All this you find is strong will is a must for every spiritual seeker. Maybe more than for success in material life. That's why Gita says, Santushta Satadam Yogi Yatatma Dridha Nischaya. Dridha Nischaya means you should have a strong will. So you must practice. Then only you will succeed, you will progress. In another context, mother says, where devotee went and complained to her. I have done a lot of spiritual practice, a lot of japa, dhyana, japa, meditation and so on. Still, I am not making any progress. Then mother says, well, you say you did so much of meditation. Do you think just because you are doing so much, God should manifest in front of you? Is God like vegetable that you go to market, or vegetable, and she gives the example of fish or vegetable that you buy from market? So you can see this interesting teachings. On the one hand, mother focuses on the importance of self-effort, strong willpower, determination, our own effort to succeed, steadiness and regularity, punctuality that we must observe in doing spiritual sadhana. And she gives her own example. Because that devotee, that disciple was a bit lax, lazy, so mother wanted to address that problem. Then in the later example, that disciple or devotee, both disciple and devotee both, householder disciples, householder devotees. And some of them were very steady, very steadfast. But then, always complaining, well, I am doing so much, still I am not progressing. So the mother says, God is not a thing that you can buy in the markets, the way you buy vegetable in the markets. No, this synthesis of the importance of self-effort and God's grace, which is a very important subject in all traditions, is the core of Mother's teachings. In a general way, often a teacher addresses the problems of the disciples or spiritual seekers, depending upon the type of the person who is asking this question. So just as a doctor prescribes medicine, depending upon the kind of illness which the patient is suffering from. So when some disciples who are very steady, very steadfast and hardworking, but thought that just because he is working hard, he should get the result. So Mother said, no, God's grace is the final word. But to others, oh, God will look after everything, so I don't have to do much. Mother said, your effort is a must. Now, what is the mystery of this synthesis? Without self-effort, we do not become grace-worthy. So grace-worthiness, fitness to understand God's grace as God's grace. We need to evolve and reach a level of spiritual fitness. Unless we evolve and become worthy of God's grace and reach the level of spiritual fitness to understand and to make use of God's grace and to recognize God's grace as God's grace, we should be spiritually fit. Because otherwise we may interpret God's grace as accident. You can, in modern scientific culture, you can interpret everything as accident. Just a Big Bang was an accident. It was not design. So by contradicting creationism, we push evolutionism beyond all limits, and finally we land in a kind of mistaken concept of accidentalism. So, to understand God's grace as God's grace and not as accident, we must become grace-worthy. I shall try to illustrate this point on the basis of one illustration that is found in a different tradition in the autobiographical writings of Saint Teresa. So she gives the example of a farmer trying to irrigate a field. The field is full of stones, thorns, pebbles, all kinds of things. So it's not ready. So she gives the example. In those days, in medieval times, they had different ways of irrigating the field. The field is the human mind. And what are the thorns, the pebbles and stones? Our skepticism, doubtfulness, and also unwillingness to work hard, to put up the effort that alone can make us worthy of God's grace. Because the general principle is, you begin with self-effort and then God's grace, and the third stage, you recognize the fact that self-effort itself was part of God's grace. It was not something totally different. But you do not recognize this at the beginning. If you recognize this at the beginning, then you won't do that. So, coming back to this illustration. So the farmer wants to irrigate a field. So there are rivers, maybe wells, lakes. So he could cut a canal use buckets, water mills in those days to irrigate a field. There are different ways of doing it, which all involve effort. But before he undertakes the job of irrigating the field, he must remove all the thorns and stones and pebbles from the field. Otherwise, you won't be able to sow the seed. You can think of the parable in Bible, the sower of the seed parable, the same thing. So, before the farmer undertakes the job of sowing the seed, he should take up the job of irrigating the field. And before that, he should take the first step of removing all the obstacles, the stones and thorns from the field. And then he must irrigate. Now she extends the illustration beyond that point. She says, suppose you are trying to, you have already removed the seeds, removed the stones and thorns from the field, and you are about to start the job of bringing water by cutting a canal. It starts raining. So the field is ready and the rains come down. Now, rains correspond to God's grace. So only if you finish the job of making the field ready with the intention of cutting a canal to bring the water from the nearby river or well, then only rains will help you. So first of all, you should be ready to bring water through your effort. Maybe with buckets, water mill, whatever. But before that, you should make the field ready. If it starts raining, before the field is ready, you will get more weeds and grass, and no, you don't get any food grains. The sowing of the seed will be of no use. So this great metaphor, the great illustration, means synthesis of Purushartha, as it is called in the traditional Sanskrit terminology. It means self-effort and God's grace, Kripa. A synthesis, harmonization of the ideals of effort and grace. This is what you find in Mother's instructions. And incidentally, this is what you find in Sri Ramakrishna's teachings also. So, of course, the mechanism began with Sri Ramakrishna. So when traders came to Sri Ramakrishna, who were running the big shops of Calcutta, Sri Ramakrishna didn't ask them to close their shop and go to forests. He told them, you are very good, you are very intelligent people, so you do your job, make money, no problem. But once in a while you go to a temple, a holy place, talk to people who are spiritually enlightened. Because if Sri Ramakrishna had told them any time, you should close your shop and go to a forest, they would think this religion is totally unpractical. So they wouldn't bother about it. They wouldn't come there again. So when some great spiritual seekers who were ready to renounce and become monks, then Sri Ramakrishna talked to them about the highest renunciation. So this synthesis of the fitness of the disciple and also the wisdom of the teaching, you find in Mother's instructions. I mean, the synthesis, the harmony of self-effort and God's grace. This idea you find in Upanishad literature. I just want to focus on one aspect because in Holy Mother's teaching, there are many sins of the teaching. In just one page you can write the whole full volumes about it. There's no point in giving a list of instructions everyone can read, but it's practical aspect in our day-to-day spiritual life. That's what I'm trying to focus on. There is a similar analogy and illustration in the Upanishads, which Mother puts in a much more simple language. It comes in the Chandogya Upanishad, part of Samaveda, 6th chapter. So there are 16 sections called Brahmana. Brahmana means one section of the chapter. 6th chapter, there are 16 sections. The whole chapter deals with the instruction of Tattwamasi, especially from 8th section to 16th section, 9 sections. Now, in the 14th section, most probably, there is one illustration, which again is a harmonization of our effort, God's grace, and also the help that we get from fellow spiritual seekers and also from holy scriptures. So it is called Gandhara Purushas Drishtanta, the illustration, the example based on the experience of a spiritual seeker who was returning from India to his hometown. Gandhara is Kandahar, today's Afghanistan. There used to be land route and constant movement of spiritual seekers from Afghanistan and other places towards India. So that book, in fact, the Chandogya Upanishad belongs to maybe 4th century BC. So the illustration is based on the story. The story is this. Once a pilgrim started his journey from India towards his hometown in Afghanistan, Kandahar. It's called Sanskrit, it's called Gandhara, it's called. As he was moving, he was waylaid by a group of robbers who ambushed him, robbed him, and took him into the thick forests and tied him to a tree, fully blindfolded. This is the condition. Here, the robbers correspond to many of the obstacles we face in our spiritual journey. The pilgrim who is traveling from India to Gandhara Desha, Kandahar, is a spiritual seeker. Blindfold is ignorance. So this is the analogy, the illustration. So this, of course, the story is very interesting and very one of the famous, celebrated examples, illustrations in the Vedic literature. So the poor pilgrim is ambushed, waylaid, and robbed of all his possessions and taken forcefully to thick forest and tied to a tree. Now what should he do? The robbers are left. If he keeps quiet wonderfully, I am very happy now, it's a wonderful, happy situation, he will never see daylight again. He will never be able to come out of the thick forest. So he should shout, make big, high, loud noise. Then he could expect some other pilgrims traveling, taking the same road from India to Kandahar, to listen to his cries and sounds, and will come to the forest and free him from the bondage. So what he does is, he makes loud noise. I am ambushed, robbed, tied to a tree, please come and help me. This is what he should do. Similarly, in actual life, if you have problems in life, we may not very often recognize problems as problems. So those who are attending this retreat, those who try to meditate, those who read holy scriptures, those who discuss among themselves about spiritual values, just like making loud noise when you are blindfolded, robbed, ambushed, and taken to the thick forest and tied to a tree. See, Ramakrishna gives in his language, like catching fish. Some clever fish will try to jump out of the net. Some fish who think they're very clever but really very stupid will lay there silent, very happy about a wonderful place, this net, to be killed and eaten and digested in no time. Some fish will never get caught. So Sri Ramakrishna gives 3 examples, which based on Panchatantra and Katharsiri Sagar, you can example. See, Ramakrishna could remember everything whenever he heard once, So all the grand examples and illustrations come alive in his teachings with a new color, with a new focus, with a new emphasis. That is the uniqueness of the teaching. So, the poor pilgrim should make a lot of noise. And then only some fellow travelers, kind-hearted people, after compassion, will look around and watch from where the cries and weeping sounds are coming from, and will go there and untie the rope, remove the blindfold, and liberate him from that bondage, and slowly lead him out of the thick forest, bring him to the main highway, then show him, look here, this is the direction you have to take to reach your hometown, Gandhara. In spiritual life, we need to sing. We have to make a lot of noise. We self-effort. That's what Mother says. So Mother says, you should be very steady, you should have a strong will, you should be very punctual in doing japa, meditation, spiritual practices. Otherwise you won't get anything. So we must make a lot of noise. Lot of noise could mean going to a library, taking a holy scripture, going to a place to meditate, to pray, or even discuss with fellow spiritual seekers, spiritual ideas. Okay, now the compassionate teacher liberates him from this bondage, brings him to the highway. Then he may tell him, well, this is the direction you have to take if you want to get back to your home. So he starts his journey. So he should keep in mind the instructions of the teacher. So the Upanishad says you should be Medhavi, Pandita, all these terms are used. You should be intelligent enough to understand instructions that could come to you through teacher, to some books, through holy associations, maybe by listening to wonderful ideas. So we must be able to understand this, keep in our mind, and then we must be steady in our efforts. So the Upanishad gives the example. Suppose the pilgrim listens to the instructions of the teacher and starts his journey back to his hometown, and on the way there is a wonderful garden. Oh, let me sit there for some time instead of continuing my journey. Then he will be lost. Or after curiosity he takes some by lanes, narrow tracks will be there. There is some wonderful flowers, and then he diverts his attention in another direction. He will end up on a track that will take you to the precipice, end of the journey. So he should be steady. That's Mother says. You should be steady. You should be punctual. You should be steadfast in spiritual practices. Then also you should remember, it is not like going to a market and buy something that you want. So your effort is the price you pay. So in return, God should stand right in front of you. So there is a cause and effect relationship. The relationship between your credit card and what you get from the counter, or the Trader Joe's counter. There is no such relationship. We must work hard, be steady in our spiritual practices. All these are necessary, but you should not link this spiritual sadhana to our spiritual progress. Spiritual progress will come if the pilgrim follows his journey according to the instructions he receives from the teacher. He will certainly get back to his hometown, Gandhara, no doubt. There's no doubt about it, without any distraction. If he continues